Hi guys, welcome back to a new video. Today we are doing a fun little video that is kind of inspired by Chandler's videos where she reads like a bunch of books from one genre and then tells you what the best of the best are. I've done this but with a very specific, extremely niche topic, and that is sports romances, but specifically Formula One. I have just kind of been obsessed with Formula One sports romances for like the past month or two, and I read 4 of them. And I know 4 isn't like a massive number, but I still wanted to do a quick breakdown and comparison of the 4 books that I read and which one I would recommend and which one I would definitely tell you to maybe not read and maybe skip out on because they're not worth it. So I've made myself a little spreadsheet with all the information, and we're gonna go worst to best, saving the best for last, and I'm gonna tell you all about the F1 romances I've read recently. Let us start with the worst one, and that is definitely Reserved by Bridget Rose. I gave this a 2.5 star rating. It does have an average rating of 3.89, but I think that's just because it has very, very few ratings. It's still on the more like unknown side, and therefore it doesn't have that many ratings. So like the few 5 stars it has push it quite high up. But yeah, I gave this 2.5 stars. I didn't like this, but let me tell you why. So essentially this is about a male driver and a female like F1 journalist, and she's also a team principal's daughter. So her dad owns one of the F1 teams that drivers drive for. It is extremely insta-lovey. Basically, they meet in London, just on the street. She's like photographing his car because she likes to photograph cars, and he's there and he's like, oh no, like keep photographing, and he basically falls in love with her at that moment. She is doing nothing but photograph his car, and he's like, oh my god, most beautiful woman I've ever seen, like I'm in love with her. And like, you know, good for her, but like the problem I have with this book is that it's so insta-lovey and it's just out of character for the main guy, because Adrian, is supposed to be this like massive playboy, man whore, like absolute playboy, and he basically turns into a saint within the second that he sees her, and we never see his playboy behavior. So we're basically just told that he's a playboy, but we never see it, because the second he sees her, he stops sleeping with anyone else. And I kid you not, they meet on the street for like 5 minutes, and then they don't see each other for a solid month or 2, maybe longer, I don't know. But he still does not get with anyone else. Like, he's so fixated on her. And like, that might be cute, but for me it's just out of character, and for me it's just a bit unrealistic. It's not like they had a one-night stand. It's not like they made out. They just saw each other and spoke for 2 minutes. Anyway, it's also kind of forbidden romance because she is an F1 sports journalist and he's obviously a driver, and in her contract it states that she's not allowed to date any driver because of like biases and like neutrality towards the teams that she's writing about in her articles, which is all fair. They don't really listen to that contract, and they're quite clearly attracted to each other, and they quite clearly flirt with each other, and it obviously becomes a problem at some point. But yeah, to me, my main issue with the book is that the male main character is depicted as such a saint when he's meant to be a playboy, and the female main character just has no personality. Like, I cannot tell you a single thing about her except that she has anxiety, because there's like a massive deal that she has anxiety, and it's basically her only personality trait. Like, she doesn't really have anything else about her. So unfortunately, I don't know, I just felt like this one was really flat. It also felt very, very self-insert fanfiction-y. This was very clearly written, modeled off real drivers, and very, very clearly the teams are based on real teams, the drivers are based on real drivers, and you can quite clearly tell who's who, I'm pretty sure. And it's just sort of F1 fanfiction, and not in a great way. I also feel like it very, very often just told you what is going on in F1 instead of showing you. So instead of showing you how race weekend works and like how the race works by writing an exciting race scene, you can write such good race scenes, and some of the other books in this list will show that. But in this book, it was more like a 3-line paragraph that told you how a race works, and then it told you who was number one, and it just wasn't exciting. I feel like there's so much excitement that you can write in F1, especially about the races, and this one didn't do that at all, pretty much. So yeah, this one was my least favorite. I just personally think it was very fan-fiction-y and just not well written. I just wouldn't recommend this. I think it was quite boring. I think it was the one that dragged the most, and just the characters felt like cardboard. I don't know. I can't say anything else. It was just pretty boring. Like, it was not great. So let's move on to the next one. The second book on my list is Oversteer by B. Lustig? I don't know. But yeah, this is another F1 romance, and this is also about a male driver and then a non-driver, non-F1 girly. She is actually completely unrelated to the world of Formula One. She is a completely normal girl. She works in a bar, and he is basically dropped from his team, and so he goes out to drink the night before a race because he's frustrated. He is, you know, completely annoyed, and she is the owner of a bar, and she meets him on the street while she's walking to her bar, and she realizes who he is because she watches F1. And so she talks to him, and she's basically like, why are you drinking before a race? Like, are you stupid? She's very sassy. She basically tells him her opinion, and he is completely intrigued by that. He likes the sass, which, good on him. So it's, again, quite insta-lovey. He basically is attracted to her in that moment, but I feel like it's fair. I feel like it's more reasonable. She has a dark past, and she is blackmailed by someone from her past who says that if she like openly dates this F1 driver, they will spill everything about her past to the media. So it's kind of forbidden love, but in a much more interesting way than in the previous book, because here we actually have like an interesting backstory and a very dark past on her side. So I actually really enjoyed that part. I gave this book 3 stars, but like a decent 3-star. 3-star for me is just an enjoyable book that isn't perfect. It has flaws. The average rating again is 3.89 stars, which I think is so interesting that they have the same rating, but I think Oversteer was a lot better. My main issue with the book is that, once again, it's quite insta-love heavy. It's just very insta-lovey, and like they always become obsessed so quickly when they're meant to be playboys. I don't understand it. I just feel like if you're writing a playboy, write a playboy, or if you're writing like a lover boy, write a lover boy. You don't have to mix them. I don't know, maybe that's just a personal thing I have with that trope, but I don't like it. And my other issue with this was that he is already a world champion. Like, he is a one-time world champion. However, his complete driving performance depends on like how he and the girlie are currently doing. So when they're fighting, he does shit. When they're great, he calls her like his lucky charm, and like his whole driving performance basically relies on her. And if they're on good terms, he does well. If they're on bad terms, he does shit. And I just don't like that. I think it's really unrealistic for him to completely drive based on his relationship. I think that's A, completely unprofessional, and B, also quite unrealistic. And I just feel like that was a bit too much. Like, that was just a bit too much for me. I was like, no, why is his driving dependent on a girl? Like, don't. Also, the way he called her his lucky charm and made all of his like driver performances like dependent on her, I did not like that. Like, don't blame your job and your talent on the girl you're dating, and when you're doing well, it's her fault. When you're doing shit, it's her fault as well. Like, I don't know, that was my main issue with this. Also, I felt like some of the like F1 like business meetings felt a bit unrealistic. Like, initially when he gets dropped by his team, that conversation felt so over the top and so unrealistic and so unprofessional. I don't know. But otherwise, I enjoyed this and I had a fun time reading it, and I would recommend this if you're looking for something that's quite silly, quite, you know, fun, but not too serious and not too realistic. But I had a good time. I felt like the backstory of like the dark past was quite good. And yeah, I would recommend this, but with the note that it's probably not going to be a 5-star for you, but like it's just going to be an entertaining read. In number 2, we have Off the Grid by Kay Bromberg, which is yet another romance between a male driver and the female main character. And in this one, the female main character once again is the team principal's daughter. So we basically have the driver of an F1 team and the daughter of his own team principal. So this one basically follows Riggs, who was a driver in F2, so the junior formula, where kind of drivers go to prepare to go into F1. And because a driver in Formula 1 has a kind of really bad car crash and ends up severely injured and unable to drive for probably the rest of the season, I think, Riggs gets asked to step up into F1 and complete the rest of the season for that team. So he basically is fresh into F1, has never driven an F1 before, and he is ready to perform. But before he performs, he goes out to celebrate with his friends, and there he is dared by his friends to flirt with and get the number of the woman in the bar that is least likely to be flirted with. And that just happens to be the daughter of his future team principal, which he obviously doesn't know, but he flirts with her, he gets her number, they even kiss. He then goes back to his table, and unfortunately he forgets the little card with the dare on it at the bar. So Camila finds out that this was all a dare, and she is not happy. And she's also definitely not happy like a few days later when they officially meet for the first time at the team, and she realizes that the man who humiliated her at the bar is the new driver of her F1 team, because she is currently learning to like take over the team from her dad, who was running it so far, because he has an illness, so she's learning how to take over. Obviously, there's a lot of drama pre-programmed from this point, and it is kind of enemies to lovers, I want to say. They're obviously not like mortal enemies, but they do have a lot of tension and a lot of animosity between them. So yeah, it is kind of dramatic. And I really enjoyed it. I think there was a lot of tension, it was suspenseful, it was dramatic, there was a lot of plot. The racing was described really well. I really liked the way that Kay Bromberg wrote F1. We had really interesting racing scenes. They were so suspenseful, so well written, and there was like a lot of good racing scenes. And I felt like also the teams and the drivers felt like they were their own people and their own teams and completely made up and not just modeled off of real teams and drivers, which I think is kind of rare in Formula 1 romances, because a lot of the times they just kind of give the teams new names, but they keep the same kind of dynamics and the same good teams, the same bad teams. But this one felt like it just made up new teams, and it was very creative, and it had a lot of that what other F1 romances don't have. However, my main issue with this book was Riggs. He felt like a right asshole. Like, he was just a bit of an asshole. He felt like a true drag. The way that he treats women at the start of the book is genuinely horrible, and also he seems quite like aggressive and quite unfair of a person overall. He disobeys like radio orders in F1, like when he drives, like he's very selfish. He just doesn't seem like a nice person, and yes, he does have sort of a redemption arc, but I feel like it just came a bit too late, and also some things you just can't really undo with a redemption arc. So I'm not the biggest fan of him. I couldn't root for him for the entire book, but on the other hand, I really like Camila. I think she was a really great female main character. She went through some stuff in her past, and I feel like we had a pretty mature and adult female main character, which I really liked. Overall, I enjoyed this. I gave it a 3.5 to 4 stars, so definitely a step up from the previous books. Not perfect yet, but definitely entertaining. So if you are looking for an F1 romance that has a bit of the enemies to lovers, a bit of the jerk male driver, and, you know, teen principal daughter vibe, then definitely go for this one. I think it was entertaining and pretty fun. And last but not least, we have my, to this day, favourite F1 romance, and that is Cross the Line by Simone Soltani. This was my favourite so far. This, for me, got a 4 stars, but a good 4-star rating, like a pretty high 4-star rating. I really enjoyed this. Once again, we have a male driver and a female main character, and she is actually his PR girl, and she is hired to fix his reputation. Basically, his previous PR girl fucked him over a little bit and set a rumor into the world that he has STDs, I think that was it. And he is now hiring someone new to fix his reputation. And who wouldn't be better for that than his best friend's little sister? So yeah, this is basically a brother's best friend trope. So yeah, I always really like those. I think they're just kind of fun. We also have, through that, like a childhood friendship to lovers vibe, because they obviously have known each other their entire lives. She's obviously his best friend's little sister. So yeah, I just think it's nice to not have insta love for once, because I just found it so unrealistic in a lot of the other books. But this one I felt like was a lot more realistic, just because they already knew each other. And she had a crush on him in the past. He also kind of had a crush on her in the past, but it never went anywhere. And now they have to work together to fix his reputation, because he is losing all of his sponsors, because obviously no one wants to sponsor someone who has STDs. So yeah, it's kind of a forbidden romance as well, because once again, obviously she works for him, so they can't really be seen dating without like compromising his reputation once again. And also basically her brother, so the best friend, has told them do not date, because he doesn't want anything to like get weird or to end for anything to like happen between them. I really enjoyed this. I liked it. I think it was really well written. I really enjoyed the characters for once. I really liked both the male character and the female main character, which is so rare, because in all of the previous books I had an issue with like either one of the characters. So this is the first one where I really enjoyed both characters. The plot was great. It was really fun to read. I had a good time. The forbidden love was a little bit unnecessary, especially in terms of like the brother forbidding them from dating. Like, I felt like that was a tiny bit unnecessary, but overall it worked out pretty fine. And there was no third act breakup, which I very much appreciated, because I had a third act breakup. It's always so unnecessary and often really underdeveloped, so I really enjoyed that this one didn't have one. And it also gets a little bonus point for diversity, because both of the characters are not white. It's been a while since I read this, but I believe the main character is at least partially black, and the male main character has, I believe, an Indian heritage, but I could be wrong. But they're definitely both non-white, which is always a plus. And they also delve into some of the racial commentary in F1 and how it's a pretty like white dominated field, and people of colour usually have a harder time in the sport. So it does delve into that, which I think is really nice, and yeah, I appreciated that. I think it really gave it a bonus point that I didn't see in like the other books that I read. So yeah, that was pretty good. What surprised me is that this is actually the book with the lowest mean rating on Goodreads. It has a 3.73 rating, which I don't know why. I think this was a lot better than the other ones, but I think it's just because this is the most popular and has the most ratings. So statistically, there are more people that dislike it because it's just more popular overall. But I would say out of the 4 books that I read, so Reserved, Oversteer, Off the Grid, and Cross the Line is the one I would recommend the most. And I would say definitely read this if you are into Formula One. Unsurprisingly, I am. Then I think this is the best one for you to start with. I will definitely keep reading more. There are quite a lot on Kindle Unlimited, so if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, there are plenty on there. But yeah, I would highly recommend this, and have fun reading it if you do. I know that this is extremely niche content. I'm not expecting anyone to have stuck around until the end. If you did, thank you so much. But I know that this is extremely niche content. I would probably not really speak about F1 more on this channel, but right now it's just my hyperfixation and I thought, why not make a video on it? And yeah, hopefully I will see you again soon with a more standard video and less of a niche topic. Hopefully I will see you soon with a new video, but thank you so much for watching. If you did stick around until the end, I applaud you. Why? Hopefully you found a great new book to read, and yeah, I will see you soon. See you then. Bye bye.